want you to meet Captain Nemo here, out of the pages of Jules Verne's classic 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Now, Captain Nemo and his crew will all be familiar to us in miniature characters here, young and old alike. But we're going to have a preview of his amazing exploits beneath the sea, because Miss Vicky Martell of Napa, California, asked for it. She wrote, I love the fairy tales and stories that you can see with a View-Master stereoscope. Could you show me how they make those people and animals that act in those stories look so real? Well, Vicky, this is the workshop where these picture fairy tales with their lifelike miniatures begin. And here is Mr. Lee Green. It's his job to produce these fantasies. Lee, you heard the request here. We're anxious to see how you get such reality out of these miniatures.
Unlike motion pictures, our story scenes are viewed in detail. Each picture must be accurate and authentic. Take the costumes our wardrobe mistress, Martha Armstrong, is working on. Captain Nemo's uniform is perfect to the last button. He has a celluloid collar, a tiny black tie, even the gold braid on his sleeve is militarily correct. We even have a full shirt worn underneath his coat, complete with tiny cuffs.
Well, you certainly watch the details there.
Our scenic designer, Blanding Sloan, is just as scrupulously correct with his set. Here is the famous underwater burial scene. Everything is built to exact scale. As you see, we even have swimming fish.
Now, when it comes to expressions on the face, like Captain Nemo has here, they're so realistic. How do you get that?
These expressions are all carefully plotted on paper and are then carved into wooden heads by our sculptor, Mr. Warren Cheney. Mr. Cheney then makes a plaster cast of the wooden model. That's how we get the lifelike effect. We have different heads and different arms for each of our actors, which fit on a master body. This way, we can get a variety of expressions and a suggestion of movement in both hands and face.
I remember the story now. Captain Nemo and the crew, they came in contact with a huge octopus. How'd you handle that?
This octopus weighs 110 pounds. That's it right here, Art.
The villain, huh?
Yes, that's what this plaster cast actually weighs.
Gee, it's almost too real there. Now, how did you get him to tussle with the submarine?
We had to make a smaller octopus for that, with its tentacles wrapped around the submarine. Here it is, ready for photographing.
There's the Nautilus here, huh? And did you have just one model of the submarine?
No, we had to make two models. This smaller 2-foot model to speed up photography, and the larger 6-foot model with the wounded seaman for deck shots.
Oh, yeah. Tell you, you've done a wonderful job using these miniatures in so many different ways in different scenes. How long does it take you to get a story together?
This one took us 4 months. We finished just in time to make 20,000 leagues available all over the country for Christmas. Now, do you think Vicky would like to see that preview?
Well, I know Vicky and some more millions of us would like to see it.
Well, let's get our View-Master stereoscope. Here it is, Art. And parts 1, 2, and 3 of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You just insert the reel in the View-Master and flick the lever.
All right, now take a look at this, Vicky. You asked for it. It's Professor Faraway and Conseil and Ned Land approach the monster. It's man-made, shouts Ned Land as a strange crew appears. You are my prisoners, proclaims Captain Nemo. Atomic power is the secret of the Nautilus. A shell kills one of the submarine's crew. With horror, we watch Captain Nemo's revenge. Strange funeral under the sea. Through the salon window, we see a giant octopus. The octopus holds the Nautilus in its grip. A tentacle snatches up one of the crew. Ned Land closes in to harpoon the monster. Captain Nemo saves Ned Land. Ned dives underwater to save the crewman. I owe you a debt, Captain Nemo tells the harpooner. The Nautilus enters an undersea tunnel. Crater Lake Base and the uranium mine. The lab chief has escaped, the scientist tells Nemo. This time control will detonate the atomic fuel. We board the Nautilus to escape the explosion. Escape in a small boat, Ned. My debt is paid. Captain Nemo's secret is destroyed forever. Yes, I tell you, there is fantasy at its finest there. I want to congratulate you. You've made a great hit. I know you will with this 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Yes, sir. Mr. Green, you and your talented people there have done a colossal job.
Thank you, Art.
And there you are. We got behind stage there in Never Never Land in miniature. Because, Vicky, you asked for it. Oh, Journey, your television passport to the exciting, colorful world of adventure, as seen through the eyes of real people. Here to present the actual films of tonight's journey is John Stevenson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's journey is an unusual one indeed, taking us behind the scenes to the land of make-believe in Hollywood, California. This is the famous View-Master, and this small disc is a three-dimensional sequence of reel into the View-Master. Press the button, and there in gorgeous color is a three-dimensional sequence of exciting film. But even more exciting is the story of how these three-dimensional slides are made. We'll see tonight's guest, Mrs. Ingeborg Green, being charged and thrown to the ground repeatedly by a tame but awfully heavy lion. For the sake of a single snapshot in 3D, we'll see Mrs. Green dive to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean in a simulated treasure hunt. And also included in tonight's absorbing film are sequences from Robin Hood, from the immortal classic Robinson Crusoe, and from famous biblical stories we all know so well. Our episode is entitled Ingeborg in Hollywood. I'd like to introduce our very talented guest, who was educated in Norway and found her life's work in fabulous Hollywood, USA, Mrs. Ingeborg Green. Mrs. Green, I'm sure that most of us are familiar with this three-dimensional View-Master, but I don't think that any of us realize the tremendous amount of work that goes into the making of a single three-dimensional snapshot.
Well, actually, the shooting with this little camera, like so, is a very simple part of it. The adventure part of it is the finding the locations, getting the right characters to play the part, and getting everybody on time for the shooting and the weather right, etc. This makes it a lot of fun.
And that's the part we're going to see right now. Here is the behind-the-scenes story, ladies and gentlemen, of how the mushrooming three-dimensional industry comes into your home. Here to describe these films is our Hollywood stunt woman, Mrs. Ingeborg Green.
John, we're working on a story in 3D still photographs of African animals. Our first project is to get pictures of me fighting a ferocious lion.
Uh-oh.
I'd like to apologize right now for the way the lion is behaving. He's in a playful mood today and just doesn't want to go along with our story.
Well, if this lion is playful, Mrs. Green, I wouldn't want to see you work with him when he meant business.
Well, he is in business, actually. He's Jackie, the MGM lion. And you've seen him in motion pictures. But we haven't much time to jolly temperament, even in the lion. We're on a shoestring budget where every minute counts. We're at a large ranch in the San Fernando Valley. Incidentally, we try to get realistic backgrounds in all our stories. And this is the way much of Africa looks.
Well, Jackie looks authentic enough, too.
Yes, John, but he isn't cooperating yet.
He's still fooling? Well, isn't there anything you can do, Mrs. Green?
Well, animals instinctively go for your throat, even in play. I tease him to do that.
Oh.
But you have to be careful to protect yourself. That's why I have my arm in front of my face. It's a hot day here in the valley, and Jackie doesn't have to worry about our budget problems. When he feels like quitting for the day, he just rolls over and stops. Now I'm protecting my face again as we try to get some action into the scene.
Aren't you kind of tempting fate there, Mrs. Green?
Yes, I am tempting fate, John. But you can see that Jackie is still playful.
How much does Jackie weigh?
He weighs about 300 pounds, John. Even the sight of one of our actors pretending to shoot Jackie and save me doesn't arouse the lion at all. He may look vicious, but there was only one real damage. He chewed up my new straw hat. This was his way of showing affection for me.
A strange way to show affection. All right, now we've had lions in Africa. What's our next story?
Well, we're going to move on to a picture story of the famous fictional character Robinson Crusoe. Here we are loading the equipment as we set out for the beach. We have to be careful and make sure we have everything we need. Any mistake or delay can be costly. With our small budget, John, we just can't afford to make any mistakes. But everyone in the company pitches in and helps us get off. We're traveling to a cove on the Pacific coast of California near San Pedro. The big Hollywood studios can afford to use backdrops, false rocks, John. But when we do a story like Robinson Crusoe, we have to use the real thing. That's Lou Hippie, by the way, putting on Robinson Crusoe's makeup. This has to be a really durable makeup job, John, because our actors will be spending hours in this cold, cold water. The sharp barnacles and choppy surf don't make things any easier for us. So here we are, setting up our reflectors and making sure we have enough light. Then we have to check with our storyboards, which you will see in a moment, and then arrange the scenes properly.
In other words, these storyboards are like picture blueprints of each thing.
Exactly. You see, we have to tell the whole story in only 21 pictures, John. We can't waste a thing. So we concentrate on the famous scenes and try to get in them as much as possible. This scene is next on our storyboard. It plots the moment when Robinson Crusoe sees the powder keg floating in the water. He's going to jump in and get it while Friday tosses him a line. That board with a fin on it is supposed to be a shark. It's handled by Bob Lemaire, the famous skin diver in Aqualung. Notice how lifelike Lemaire makes the fin look by keeping it underwater and swimming in circles. Even from a few feet away, John, you'd have a hard time telling that that wasn't a real shark. That is the way Bob handles it. That's just a sample of the way we work for realism. In every shot, we work away just like beavers.
You know, I can't help but admire, Mrs. Green, the enthusiasm of you and your crew.
Thank you, John. The spirit is contagious, too. Everyone does more than his share of work. And when everyone is working so hard, we're bound to come up with an injury or two. Once in a while, that is.
Fortunately, that doesn't look too serious.
No, it isn't. That's just one of the minor hazards of our work. There's bound to be a scrape or a bump, but we're able to fix everything. And now lunchtime. It's all there, and hard morning's work have really given us an appetite.
Well, luckily they sent the right number of lunches, Mrs. Green, or you might have been left out.
Not this Norwegian, John. After lunch, more work. Applying the finishing touches on Friday's makeup. This is one of the first scenes in the story when Friday is about to be burned at the stake by his own people. Robinson Crusoe has kept his beard on and is all ready for the rescue. Before we film the scene, I take one last look at the storyboard for a final check.
Where do you get these storyboards?
They're made up by our creative art director, View-Master Tru-Vue. He picks the most famous scenes from the classic stories we decide to choose, and then gives us drawings from each scene.
I begin to see now how important these storyboards really are.
We'd be lost without them, John. For instance, in this 3D picture story of Robinson Crusoe, all the guns and many of the props were originally used in the Hollywood motion picture. Now the actors are placed, the reflectors are in position, and the cameras are finally ready to go.
Well, what about this location, Mrs. Green? We're not at the ocean anymore, are we?
No, John. For this scene, we had to pack up and move to a botanical garden near the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. This garden is quite famous for its collection of plants and trees. These scenes show the mutiny of the sailors. This is where the ship from England comes to rescue Robinson Crusoe. There we see a blunderbuss taking a shot at one of the sailors. And this is our little 3D camera. Now we're about to witness the burning of Friday at the stake. And here's where we were truly fortunate, John. These young men you see here aren't really actors. They're exchange students from Nigeria studying law at the University of California. The young man playing the part of Friday is a real Nigerian prince studying medicine. His name is Aniago Okonu, and we were very thankful that he and his friends took the time to help us.
A very wonderful job they're doing, too. And you know, I can't help noticing one thing, Mrs. Green. The players all have such convincing gestures and facial expressions. Now, as the director, how do you motivate this?
Well, John, we do have those storyboards, you know, and a completely written script. It sort of gives the actors an added picture of what we want. We let the actors speak lines out loud, even though we never do any sound recording. Anything to help the actors get the right feeling. This is important, because we take as many as 30 or 40 pictures of each single scene. We want each 3D color slide to come out just right.
As Shakespeare said, the play is the thing.
Right you are. Here we are breaking up the few of the tops, referring to the spear mainly. And now one more scene before we move into the next story. This is where Robinson Crusoe has been on the island for years, all alone, keeping his calendar on the trunk of a tree. He decides to call this native he rescues Friday, because, according to his calendar, this day is Friday. This is one of the most famous scenes in the world of literature.
And a very touching scene as well, Mrs. Green, which I'm sure you captured on your 3D film. Uh-oh, wait a minute. This character looks familiar. Isn't this going to be Friar Tuck?
Right, John. Another day, another story. Today we've traveled to Sherwood Forest to film the classic story of Robin Hood. Our Sherwood Forest is the Corriganville Ranch in San Fernando Valley, where Hollywood Western movies are filmed. Looks like what you'd expect the real Sherwood Forest, doesn't it?
Sure does.
And here's our Robin Hood, a good-looking lad named Bob Stewart. Once again, our props are as authentic as possible. The costume Bob is wearing is the same one worn by Errol Flynn in the movie version. We even got the 3 Irish wolfhounds called for in the story.
You know, for a minute I thought we had 3 lions with us this time.
They're as big as lions, John, but they're really very tame, friendly dogs. Our big problem was finding them. They're such a rare breed in California. We had to round them up from all over the county. Of course, that's just a small part of the preparation that goes into making our stories.
And one more way you achieve your amazing results, I might add.
Thank you. Here's Friar Tuck again, and they're all made up and ready to work. Recognize him, John?
I'm not sure.
Bob Lemire, the shark man from Robinson Crusoe.
Ah, of course. He's a versatile and handy man to have around, isn't he, Mrs. Green?
Oh, he certainly is. And when he's not diving or acting, he helps us move cameras and arrange scenes. And here's Donald Jim, a top stereoscopic photographer. He's getting ready to shoot the scene where Friar Tuck signals his men.
Looks like everyone in the company works as a jack of all trades.
Because we all take our work seriously, John. Notice how painstakingly Donald Jim is fussing with the camera, always working toward perfection. Each story is a new challenge, which we treat with the greatest respect. But next, we have an underwater sequence that could have had tragic consequences at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. That sounds simple enough, but we had a big problem on our hands.
What was that?
We're near Catalina Island, and we had a hard time finding a clear spot in the water where the sun could shine through enough to light up the treasure chest on the bottom.
Uh-huh. But this water certainly seems clear enough to me.
We were lucky to find such a spot, John. It isn't ordinarily this clear. Now we see the girl looking for the chest. And here she is, discovering it.
Say, that chest would fool an experienced pirate.
It does look that way, doesn't it? But this treasure chest would disappoint a pirate. It's nothing more than bicycle taillights, thimbles, buttons, candy, and about $25 worth of costume jewelry.
Oh, no. You mean to tell me that chest is only worth $25?
No, John. The chest had to be made especially for the story. It's worth about $150. Much more than the treasure. Now, the girl is supposed to register the prize. This is very hard to do under a mask. Do you get the idea? She comes back down, and she's going to close the chest in a few minutes after examining and being amazed over this wonderful discovery. Here we see a few small fish floating around, being surprised also. Here I am beckoning to my helper to come down. I have found the treasure. Here's Jim Cutting, a very experienced diver, fortunately, as you will learn as we progress with this little story. And he is having the chest now put on top of him.
That's part of the storyline.
Yes, it is. It's part of our story. He is supposed to be trapped under the treasure chest while I go up to get more help. And we're getting the chest secured on him now, and the surge is very hard to control the chest, even though it's heavily weighted. And he is helping by holding it down.
So the story calls for him to be pinned under this treasure chest.
Yes, and I'm supposed to discover him when I come back to the scene, pinned to the chest, and I'm going for a spare oxygen tank because to all evidence his air is cut off. And you will notice that he actually does cut off his air in order to maintain the true picture. This isn't an illusion of being without air. He actually is not going to be getting air. You will see him turning off his tank in a few moments. He gives me that signal. Now he's turning it off. He'll take his hose out of his mouthpiece out. There's the signal. Now I'm supposed to bring in the tank, which I do. But in bringing in the tank, when I give him the line, his mouthpiece, I twist the air hose. Not intentionally, of course.
Yes.
But it's a very dangerous position to be in, and we're working so fast.
Ooh, this
we
is
don't
a very
realize.
tense scene, Mrs. Green.
Well, it is, and he's actually not getting air. Now, if he hadn't been an experienced diver, we could have had serious trouble because he has to jettison himself to the top immediately. And we decided we've had enough for today, John. This is a little bit too dangerous for our blood. We leave the chest at the bottom of the ocean. Anybody can have it now.
Don't worry, Mrs. Green. I'm not going after it. Well, that was certainly a most exciting sequence, Mrs. Green, and it seems to me we've had a little bit of everything. What's our next picture story?
This is our last one, John, and for me, it was one of the most satisfying. We were commissioned to make a 3D color slide series on the Christmas and Easter story.
Well, I imagine this took a great deal of extra research, Mrs. Green.
Oh, yes, it did, John. We spent days and hours at Research Library and found all the authentic costumes and settings in order to keep in line with the authentic Bible story. We use our own Pacific Ocean here at the Sea of Galilee. There are the disciples of Jesus drawing in their fish nets. They have about 4 dozen bass in there, all fresh fish, too. Farmer's market. And now we're ready for the touching and familiar scene where Jesus is breaking bread and eating the fish with his disciples.
I know there's quite a bit of activity on this set. Was your beach location that cold?
It was quite cold, John, but that wasn't the reason for the activity. We wanted to be as ready as quickly as possible to take advantage of the mist. Our research told a misty day, and we wanted to get it all down on film. I think the mist added the right touch to our pictures.
And here you are traveling again.
Well, we packed up, we finished our little shore scenes on the Galilean Sea, and we're ready to go to Corriganville.
Looks like another biblical setting.
That's right, John. We're back at another section of the Corriganville Ranch, where we were before, taking advantage of their setting. This scene is for the Christmas story and the birth of Jesus. I'm readying the scene where Mary and Joseph rode up to the inn, seeking lodging for the night. I'm sure you remember this part of the Christmas story.
Of course I do.
How Mary and Joseph are at the front door of the inn. The innkeeper is going to refuse to let them in.
And what are you doing with the basket? Is that part of the...
Well, she carries the lunch basket. You know, on the way they stop for lunch. That's quite one of the familiar scenes.
Final touches by another actor?
Yes, definitely. We're all watching out for little details. Here, of course, they're being refused. The innkeeper refuses Joseph and Mary entrance to the inn. He says they're full. Here are the 3 wise men looking for the newly born Savior. They were sent out by King Herod. They're told to find where Jesus is and tell the king so he can destroy him. And this is our setting for the court of King Herod. Once again, we tried to make a convincing setting. All our costumes for this story were originally used in the big motion picture, The Robe.
Now, the attention you pay to detail is amazing. Imagine a great many hours are spent on tedious research.
Yes, John. It amounts to several months of study. We are also fortunate to have such an enthusiastic company. We're small and haven't much money to operate with, but we couldn't possibly accomplish what we do without the talent and resourcefulness of our people.
I can imagine.
Here's a bit of last-minute makeup work before we come into the scene where Jesus is taken down from the sepulchre.
I certainly must compliment you and your cast and your actors on their enthusiasm for their jobs.
Well, it's unusual. Everybody helps. We couldn't possibly do it without the enthusiasm and the talent which is given to us. Now we see the 2 Marys, Mary Magdalene and the mother of Jesus. They're going to bathe him and dress his wounds. This is the rock where the Pharisees are trying to bribe the Roman guards not to let anyone into the tomb. They've heard that Jesus will rise again, and they do not want that miracle to happen. These, of course, are the Roman guards. It is said that these costumes actually came from Jerusalem. They were used in the original Bible stories by the motion picture companies, and we were very fortunate to get them because they're very costly. The actor taking the part of Jesus is being prepared for the resurrection scene. And here we have Mary Magdalene sitting in front of the tomb, waiting for Jesus to appear. This is a universal story of the ages. These are the dromedaries used to carry the wise men. And although they're a little stubborn at times, they worked very beautifully for us the day we were out.
When our friends in our audience see these 3D slides that you produce, they'll realize how much work has gone into, how many people have gone in to make this thing a success.
Yes, John, and it takes months of planning. You just have no idea. For a 3 or 4 day shooting, we are 3 months maybe. working on the details to get it just right. And the locations must be found, and the light has to be in the right place. And these animals are just not easy to work with. There are many of them untrained.
Whenever you work with animals, I imagine your timetable can be thrown off quite a bit.
Oh, you're so right.
They're so unpredictable.
Absolutely. They never do what you want them to do. Here we are with sheep, and talk about unpredictable. These sheep had never been in the picture. And now we're setting up some of the final scenes. This is the most memorable and inspirational of all. Jesus making ready to deliver the Sermon on the Mount.
Mrs. Green, this has been a unique film. In a short space of a half hour, we've seen moments from some of the best love stories of all time.
Oh, thank you, John. It is time and effort. But there's a great deal of personal enjoyment for me in working out these stories. Sometimes the work is dangerous, sometimes not. But to me, it's always exciting. I know most of your guests have bolder, more daring accomplishments, but my work is as satisfying to me as though I had just climbed Mount Everest.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Green, for a truly wonderful journey to the land of make-believe. As I mentioned earlier, each of these small film reels, or 3D slides to be more exact, contains a full sequence. How many of these have you filmed, and what were the best known?
I think Rin Tin Tin, John, was one of the best known, The Lone Ranger, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and just several other of the classics. And then we've done a lot of cowboy series, you know, and with Roy Rogers, and Gene Autry, and Cisco Kid. And those are great favorites with the kids. And then the zoo series, the animals.
Mrs. Green, I happen to know that you've had quite a colorful experience in the entertainment field. Would you mind telling our audience some of the highlights, please?
Well, John, it's quite infinitesimal compared to what everybody is contributing to this project. I was sort of destined to go into the producing field. My family are Norwegian. Mother's a concert singer, and father was an impresario for artists and wanted to be a theatrical producer all his life. So I was destined to be in the field from the beginning, and he schooled me in sculpturing and designing, stage design, and makeup, every phase that would contribute to the theatrical profession. There wasn't any way I could get out of it. And when I married Lee Green and we got into the three-dimensional live adventures, they just bore fruit. All the talents came into their own.
Well, that sounds like a very solid background for your work. Mrs. Green, when your work involves what Hollywood calls stunt work, like rolling around on the ground with his so-called tame lion, do you have any feelings of fear?
No, John. Actually, I'm not afraid of anything that I can think of just offhand. The action presents a challenge to me, and I think with all of us in life, that's what we meet, a series of challenges. And I find that we can't be fearful in doing that. We have to meet them with a lot of enthusiasm. Even this program is a challenge to me, frankly, and I love being on it.
Well, you're doing very well, Mrs. Green. And may I say thank you to you and Mr. Green for this very unusual half-hour presentation. And I hope that when your husband returns from French Guiana that he'll honor us with a visit and show us his true life adventurous film. Again, thank you very much, Mrs. Green.